sat in the back of the London Ultra Cab this week on the All City Taxi Talk Show. We have in the back one of the greatest MCs to ever rock a microphone, the legendary Chuck D, and his brother Eric in the back.
Yep.
How you doing?
Then we got James Bomb, he's hiding his face.
And James from the
James Bomb.
and James from the S1Ws.
Yep.
How you doing, my man?
I'm good. You?
It's great to have you in the London Ultra Cab.
Yeah, man.
And
You know, we just was, came out of the Apple store and ran into some great people there that helped me out. So 5 of them are coming to the gig tonight. We're playing at Shepherd's Bush Empire, Prophets of Rage. That's where we're in town. So, I've been in town, actually in performance twice with 2 different acts. Public Enemy Radio in May when we played with Wu-Tang, DJ Premier, De La Soul. And then now with Prophets of Rage, we're playing with the Nova Twins tonight, which is our super group of rock, rap, metal, the combination of Rage Against the Machine, Cypress Hill, and Public Enemy, with myself and DJ Lord, Be Real from Cypress Hill, and Tom Morello, Tim Comerford, and Brad Wilk from Rage Against the Machine. So,
well, that'll be absolutely legendary.
Yeah, we're trying to smash it tonight.
We'll smash it tonight.
Right, Chuck, first kind of question I always ask in my interviews is, where you from and what was it like growing up as a kid?
Well, I'm from Roosevelt, Long Island. We're from New York. Our parents are from Harlem, New York. And then they moved out to Long Island. My mom, Queens, and then my dad. And when he married my mom, they moved out to Queens where we were all born. Me, my brother, my sister, and then we lived in Queens 9 years, and then moved to Roosevelt when I was 10 and my brother was 6. So in hip hop, we grew up in a town where everybody moved from all different parts of New York City out to this 1 square mile town called Roosevelt, and they all moved to this one place. So that's what had all that energy happen. In 1976, this guy right here introduced me to hip hop, and also my sister, because they would play, tapes, cassette tapes from, Hey You Don't Stop and all that stuff. And I'd be like, all right, you can play it, but you can't play that in my room that loud.
Wow. So your hip hop roots actually go back really early, back to 76.
Oh yeah.
From the beginning.
Yeah, from the beginning. Yeah. Hip hop started. Today is actually hip hop's birthday. Really, yesterday.
Yesterday,
hip-hop's birthday yesterday.
11th of August, yeah.
1973, officially, but really, it was always in the air anyway. So.
And who was inspiring you as an MC back then?
When I first had a tape, I had a tape from Eric that had DJ Smalls and DJ Hollywood. He got from one of our neighbors across the street, Kev across the street, and he had these tapes. It had DJ Hollywood on it and DJ Woody Smalls and Woody Wood.
Yeah.
A lot of the Queens, MCs with some of the guys from the city. So it wasn't even like the Bronx so much. It was the Queens guys that were very influential in the beginning for me. And also some guys from Brooklyn, we also had some tapes too. And then the Bronx later on, because Eric had Cougar was Eric's friend, Charles Bryant.
I went to school out there.
Yeah, and then plus Eric went to school out there, so speak for himself.
And like hip hop isn't just about MCing. Hip hop is a culture, so it represents, as like graffiti, DJing, quite a lot of different elements. Did you ever try like graph or b-boying or anything like that?
Yeah, we all toyed around with b-boy, and I was already an arts dude, so I was a guy that when I saw graffiti, I was like, you travel to the city, I had to work in the city, go to the city, and I wasn't always impressed about graffiti, because I was like I come from the comic books, so I had to do sharp artwork.
You would do the flyers.
Yeah, I would do the flyers for
you design the flyers and do the artwork?
Yeah, so I thought that a lot of stuff that people were doing hip-hop wise, graffiti wise, was garbage. And I always said, I'm going to do it better. I'm going to show you how to do it. But there was a 10% that was really impressive. So, me, I was an art dude that was drawing ever since I was like an infant. So.
And who was inspiring you on the graph scene? Was it like some of the early pioneers from New York?
I would see guys like Futura, this guy named Sky. You know, when you look, you know, every train was loaded up with graffiti.
Yeah.
So you had a good, you know, even when you had somebody's great with graffiti on the train, somebody whack would just go over it. So
you were spoiled for choice. Because there was so much. You were spoiled for choice because there was so much.
It was so much. Yeah, it was. You know. So you know that was the downside, that you would see somebody's good work covered up by somebody's whack work. So they wouldn't let good works breathe, because graffiti was like, yo, wherever you can find a target, just tag it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, yeah. And did you ever write that one down? You find a target, tag it.
I like that. And you know, what was inspiring you to write your lyrics? Was it like everyday life?
I was into the art, so I didn't even write a poem until I was like 19, 20. I liked what they were doing, and I thought that, you know, I could write a few things that was better. But I was impressed by what the radio DJs were doing, and I just liked to draw the flyers. I only wanted to do the flyers. I wanted to go to the gigs, roller skate.
And was like the news and, like, you know, what was going on in society, was that having a big impact on you as an MC?
You know, Jimmy Carter was the president. I guess he was kind of cool, but you know, all kinds of fuckery was going on in New York. They had the cocaine wars, and our neighborhood didn't even have guns in 1975, and by 1979 dudes were getting killed in the town. I was like, what the hell is this? Yeah, because the guns and the drugs came from like nowhere. And it was like Roosevelt was just like a peaceful, kind of like a little country town. And then by 4 or 5 years later, you know, then they had all this stuff in the neighborhood, and people got caught up in it.
Yeah, but Roosevelt was the mecca of hip hop for Long Island.
Yeah, Roosevelt was the center point at the Roosevelt Youth Center and places like that, and then later on the roller rink. So.
Oh, that was kind of your mecca. Yeah.
Long Island's mecca.
Because in London we had a mecca, and it was called Covent Garden.
Okay.
That's where a lot of the b-boys, the MCs, and all that would congregate back in the the early to mid 80s.
Yeah, and now it's all covered up with Apple stores and stuff like that, right?
I know, and like coffee shops and all that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like the first album you brought out was
Bum Rush the Show.
Bum Rush the Show,
it was written in 1986.
Exactly.
And also it came out in 1987. Run DMC was heavy influences on, especially on Raising Hell. Yeah. And Jam Master Jay was one of the main guys that dragged us into that fold. And
Jam Master Jay was the man.
Dr. Dre from Long Island, our guy, Bill Stepney. And then myself, Hank Shockley,
Bomb Squad,
you know, Eric Sadler, Keith Shockley.
I mean, their production on those early tracks were unbelievable. I mean, they were so like all the little kind of samples, and that album was a game changer. I mean, when I first heard that album, it blew me away.
But we wanted to do something different, and we wanted to not only have people hear something different, we wanted something to be seen differently. So, you know, James Baum, Professor Griff, James Norman, Roger Chillis, very instrumental, and Mike Williams instrumental on putting the image to Public Enemy, as well as also the image of Flavor Flav. Yeah. So as much as Flavor Flav with the clock, the S1Ws had also that other image that was totally on the other side of what Flavor Flav was presenting. And myself and Terminator X were right in the middle, because all we had to do is be the rapper and the DJ.
The thing is that album, for it being one of the biggest classic hip-hop albums of all time, it wasn't just about the music. It was
also about Bum Rush the Show.
It was also about the artwork on that album, because what can you tell me the story behind the cover?
Yeah, the cover we wanted to shoot in the basement of our headquarters, which was a DJ studio at the front from Spectrum City. You know, in the basement was Eric Sadler, who was really our music producer. Had his studio called Cassad, which stood for Cassius and Sadler. And we shot it down there, and with photos by the famous Glennie Friedman, also notable for shooting Run DMC's covers, and also Ice-T and people like that, King T, and just,
Yeah.
you know, notable for doing that. And also he came from the punk idiom, shooting people like Black Flag and all those guys, and Minor Threat. So Glenn kind of shot it with that type of aesthetic, and then we added graphics to it and artwork to it, and took it from there. So
it was an amazing image, and obviously Rebel Without a Cause as well. That was an unbelievable image too.
Yeah, that was a B-side that we made in 1987, while the album was made in 1986. It was a B-side, and our album artwork, actually the 12-inch artwork had shown You're Gonna Get Yours as the release single, but Rebel Without a Pause was all the 98 posse and all the, you know, I guess all the cats, the music cats, the S1Ws, and also the neighborhood thugs that they call the 98 posse. There was a posse in vehicles. The Oldsmobile 98 is an American car by a company called General Motors that these guys were taking.
Relationship started.
You know, yeah. And the relationship started, like James said, S1Ws used to protect our gigs at Spectrum City. And the thugs were the 98 posse.
Right.
And they had a problem at first, but then they had a settlement where the 98 posse knew that they wasn't going to out-thug the S1Ws by no means. So they made kind of like an agreement and a deal that, look, you guys can come in our gigs, but you can actually help the security by also keeping those other thugs out. And you're going to be the only thugs we allow and to have carte blanche in here.
Yeah, that was crazy. That relationship was a Mexican standoff that could have ended one of our lives, but we kind of killed it because Griff was like, James, what you want to do? Because one of the guys had punched me and I just smacked him. Like, so the following week at one of the gigs, this was at the Korean Ballroom, and at the Korean Ballroom, the guys came and they had guns, and I mean, it was just crazy. So we all standing outside of the Korean Ballroom, and one of the guys was like, what y'all want to do? You know, just what you gonna do? And Griff said, well, we could do this now. We had Rambo. We just had a crew of people that, we just had all S1Ws, everybody from Roosevelt was there with us. And then when it clashed, it was like Griff says, James, what you want to do? I was like, man, this is not worth it, man. We just gonna hurt each other. This ain't what we about. And once we found that ain't what we wanted to do, one of the guys took the sawed-off shotgun that was on me.
Wow.
And uncocked it. Wow. I was like, oh shit. So if I'd have said something different, it would have been the end of me. So we end up making that pact then, and then they can come in, but they couldn't come in with no weapons, or they couldn't start any trouble. We just want to see the girls, and that's how that.
Wow.
Wow. Chuck, going back to Your Bum Rush the show, when you first toured in London in 1987, I think it was November 1987 at Hammersmith.
November
Hammersmith Apollo.
First, second, and third. That was our first 3 dates here.
Now, I went to that, and I'll be totally honest with you, I was in the audience upstairs looking down from the balcony, and when the S1Ws come out, you had the siren was going off, and I'll tell you, that resonated with me, and I'll tell you what, that was so powerful. That was the most unbelievable opening of a show I've ever seen.
Yeah, well, we were first. We had to go on first. We had traveled that whole year with LL Cool J and also Eric B. and Rakim, so we was all familiar with each other, but we were in the United States, and they had seniority on us. They had tenure. And so therefore they had seen us all year, and they knew that we were bubbling up a little bit, but they already had been out. I mean, Eric B. and Rakim had been out already a year, and LL Cool J is a superstar. He already been out 4 years. 4 years. So, they didn't heard a little rumbling from us, but they had no idea that we already invested interviews, kinship, And then our what we were saying was very relevant at that time to people in Britain, especially black folks in Britain, who were stripped of their identity and knowing who they were. Their parents had come from the Caribbean and tried to like shave off as much black so they could fit in as possible. And they felt a little disenfranchised or wondering who they were because they knew they wasn't the same as, you know, somebody white walking around London and Britain at the time. And they were, you know, their parents were not, I'm not saying they were ashamed of their black identity, but they didn't want to kind of like, I mean, it was during Margaret Thatcher, if you were over an individual out with your blackness, you could be shipped back to Jamaica with some kind of fuckery. So, you know, the parents are always like, okay, don't upset the British Empire, fit in, do well, be quiet, you know, and don't wear your race loudly because these people, you know, would be jarring to these people. And we came in and just said, fuck all that. You black and you a majority on this planet. And they're the problem. And these kids took to it like wildfire because it was the first time that they had got touched with a knowledge of self. It's one of the reasons why Mr. Farrakhan still can't come in this country because he ain't got no guns. He doesn't have anything that you could really point to. And he hasn't been allowed in the British Isles at all. Because the only thing he has been able to equip people with is his knowledge of self of black people.
Right,
yeah.
Right. And that's one of the most important knowledge you can have is the knowledge of yourself.
Self-knowledge.
I mean, the man doesn't have weapons. He teaches us to be self-reliance and you know, treat people how we want to be treated, and he can't come here.
Yeah. And it ain't like, you know, it's like people get twisted, like, oh, you know, he's your leader, he's your, you know, the man next to God and all that. No, he's a good master teacher of society, even before you get to religion. He's one of many voices we have in our whole history of teachers that are able to teach you to recognize, you know, how great you are. And he's the man of the time that I would happen to be an adult in. You know, there will be others, and there were others, but as I was an adult maturing outside of my family, you look to leadership. And there's Dick Gregory, there's this Toni Morrison who just passed. We could name 100 or more heroes. And, you know, he's somebody in my early adult years, I said, yeah, this is definitely a hero.
He's just the last man standing. He is the last man standing right now. And he stands on the shoulders of those who went before.
And as you say, Chuck, one of your lyrics, of our heroes do not appear on no stamp.
Most of our heroes don't.
Most of our heroes don't appear on the stamp.
Most of them.
They're kind of like a positive message you can give the younger generation that might be watching this, because obviously in London at the moment, there's quite a big problem with, you know, with knives and violence.
Right.
You know, it's only a small, tiny problem because there's a lot of people out there doing a lot of good things, and they're the kind of ones we got to look up to, you know, in society. But unfortunately, sometimes the media focus on the bad stuff. Is there any kind of positive message that you can give to the younger generation that are getting caught up in, like, you know?
Well, the cheapest price to pay is attention. And pay attention to those things that's around you that you can go and make positive movement, because you're going to come back to visit it, and it's going to come back to visit you. You know, we live in island culture right here, and the British Isles don't have the situation that is in the United States. Yes, you have acid throwings and knife wound stabbings, but you already see what's coming out of the United States of America with gun mass. A gun could kill 30 people at once. It's you know, it's like a pointed bomb. So we try to tell people that there's more great things that's going on, like when hugging your mother, you know, you do that more
than real.
You do that more than the hatred or animosity that goes on. You gotta just be able, and if young people don't get the message, you always need people in the next age category to be bold and fearless, to say, hey, I'm gonna let you know. If the person's 25, they can let somebody 15 know. Often when you have a society and people in their 50s or 40s or whatever, they shouldn't be the one to immediately try to reach somebody 15 or 14. This is too far a distance.
Right.
So, but the people who are 5 to 6 to 10 years older, a lot of them are nervous because they feel that they're ill-equipped to say anything. It's like, I don't know nothing, I'm too young. Well, you're
the
older.
gap is
Right.
the gap is so far. So you have the next generation above them. They can relate a little better, but then they have to, you have to still give them something as well. We just was talking about the gun laws in the United States from last night, and here in the UK is only 3% of homicides is guns. But in America,
the main reason for that is because you can't legally buy them in the UK.
right. And in America, you just had mass shootings, and from 2016 on down, we had mass shooting from Vegas in 2017.
We just had 2 last
58.
week.
Just
Three last week.
Three
last week within 24 hours of each other. You had 31 people in El Paso, Texas, gunned down. And in Dayton,
22 in Dayton.
there's
Then you had Gilroy, California at the
yeah.
Garlic Festival.
Right. You had that, I mean, it's just ridiculous. And America's leading the world in gun violence.
You had the picnic in Brooklyn.
You had 22,000 suicides, and over half of it was gun related. So I mean, it's a problem.
So goodness got to unite too, and
Right.
and it shouldn't be based on, how and where you were born all the time. If you feel good about something, you should be built. You could build with anybody. Our father kind of taught us that. He'd be like friends with like anybody. My brother does that too. He'd be like, well, look, he's friends with you. So he'll make it happen, man. So
We do make it happen. Quickly going back to the music, Chuck, was it back in when you was around sort of 86, 87, 88, was there certain albums that you would love to listen to as well that kind of blew you away?
yeah, Raising Hell by Run DMC.
Raising Hell.
Yeah, I started and stopped. That was tremendously. And then, of course, Stetsasonic,
Stats.
On Fire. And then In Full Gear the next year. We shared a bus with them. Eric B. and Rakim paid in full. Jazzy Jeff Fresh Prince, he's the DJ. I'm the rapper. EPMD.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unfinished Business. Business as Usual, all those business records.
And did you ever get into that electro sound as well? Like
because
Johnson Crew.
I'm from New York, so we had, as DJs with Spectrum, we played Nucleus.
Yeah.
Nucleus was a big influence,
Yeah.
Then you got, of course, the African Bambaataa Soul Sonic Force, but then later on, you have blends like people like Mantronics.
Yeah.
Mantronics was taking a little bit of electro, but taking a little bit of the street. So he doesn't get talked about enough.
And Man Parrish.
Yeah, Man Parrish. But Mantronics definitely was a dude that made the streets and electro work in some kind of different way. He doesn't get talked about a lot.
Yeah, I dig Mantronics, man. That was one of my early loves, especially when I came to New York. It was a melting pot for me from where I came from.
Mantronics. Yeah. Right, so well, listen, I know this was literally like a quick thing, but it's an absolute honour. Anyone watching this interview as well, subscribe to this channel, because I'm basically bringing the history. I've interviewed.
You better subscribe to this channel.
That's right.
Exactly. But Chuck and Eric and James, absolute honour to have you in the cab.
Thank you.
And you never know, we might be able to get a couple of the other members in a minute. Let's see how we get on.
They actually get that ride from Regis to Russell Square. It's great.
Yeah. Nah, Chuck, all absolute honour, my man. Absolute honour.
You guys, you learn the city. It's a big test to learn the city. Like.
Well, the knowledge, takes around 4 years to learn, and it's literally, it is one of the most hardest tests you can actually do in the world. It is. It is unbelievable. There's only a 20-25% pass rate with the knowledge.
Wow. And you know what? And at the same time, it's always changing, and people are building and changing streets, right?
Right.
Big time. It's always changing. The points of interest, hotel names are changing. You've got to be on top of this thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it takes years to learn. But It's quite funny because I've got one of the world's greatest MCs of all time in the back of one of the world's greatest cabs.
Yeah, right.
But no, we salute you, Chuck.
Yeah,
we salute you for everything. All right?
All right, see you at the show later on.
You know that.